All right, welcome back to the Metro. This is the second installment, and this time we're going to be taking care of lowering the rear axle. We've already lowered the front, and you can check that video out in the top left. So let me show you what's going on. All right, so this is where the axle is right now. This 1x1 here represents the rocker of the van, and that's where we're trying to get it to sit on, right? So we need to bring the axle up. This is the axle all the way up against the frame right now. And currently it is 6 inches off the ground. So if you look at the wheel, let me grab the wheel. The tire is 27 inches there. So we need to get the axle up halfway, which would be 13.5. So we got 6 here, and I need to bring it up the axle center, another 7.5 inches to get it where we need it to go. So let's go on the inside. All right, so we got a whole lot of things to take care of in here, but the first thing we need to modify is probably the frame. And then we can build the sheet metal and everything around it to hold it, including also relocating the airbags. We know we need to move the axle up 7.5 inches. So, and that would be from the center line, but really I want the top of the axle to, so we don't have to C-notch the frame, because Matt eventually wants to tow with this potentially. So I want to leave him a 4-inch frame on top with some big sturdy legs, so the back of the frame is still capable of towing, right? So we'll bring up a kick-up that's at least 7.5 inches, and then probably a 4-inch frame on that. So it brings us what, to 11.5. So, and that's still within the confines of these wheel tubs. Although the wheel tubs are going to move, they're going to come way up anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So first step, let's lay these kick-ups on SolidWorks, and we'll cut them out on the plasma. We'll bring them back, mock them up. We'll probably end up cutting this rib out here. We'll leave this one in. And yeah, first things first, let's modify the frame. All right, so the frame brackets have been cut. So now we need to mock them up into the frame here. So to get them to even mock up, to get them into the hole, to see what we need to modify, we need to get rid of this cross member. We're going to probably unbolt this cross member. As you can see, it's just bolted in here. So we'll take this one out. We'll probably end up cutting the bag mounts off and definitely removing the shocks. And then we can see where that's going to fit in there. So let's get cutting.
Chop, chop.
All right, so the kick-up is now mocked up, and I think this looks pretty good. So we're gonna have to remove this cross member here. This one holds the panhard bar in here. On top of the axle, we've got 7.5 inches there, so that's at a good height. Plus, you can imagine now, sitting back there'll be a bag mount sitting on top of this axle, which will get squished in here on top of this frame here. So I think moving forward, let's get rid of this one. We can tack this one in place, then we can tack the inner one in, and then we can do the same on this side. But, so there's some cool, interesting things we can see here that was assembled on this Metro once upon a time. And the first one is this rear cross member. So it looks optically incorrect, right? Like you can see it's wider here than it is here, but turns out it's longer on this side than it is on this side. Must have been a Friday. And then the other one is this. So you can see on this body mount here, you've got a bracket that comes down and over, and then one on the bottom which wraps around this cross member. But Tom on Friday afternoon decided to only put one bracket on here and not the one on the bottom. So this mount here from the factory is kind of floppy. In fact, it's cracked. So we'll have to maybe just reinforce. Well, we'll fix this bracket up so it's a little bit stronger as well. So whoever did this side of the van on a Friday afternoon at the factory in 1957 was a hack. Anyway, let's do the frame and then we'll carry on. All right, so the frame sections are in. Ooh, fall down here. Yeah, so the frame sections are in, so now we can actually cut that old frame out of there. In fact, the old frame, you can see he's got a step notch in there. It was actually pulling down in the back. So right now we have it bolted to the frame. The body's bolted to the frame all the way down. So when we cut that, it'll actually relieve some tension in the back, and that'll sit normal back there. Yeah, so let's cut that out, and then we can start plating the top and the bottom. We'll get rid of these. When I did it on the plasma, I just left those long, so I wasn't sure how far it was going to come down or how far we were going to kick that up. So let's get rid of that, cut the center section out, wrap the inside, wrap the outside, and then we can start removing the wheel tubs. Good?
Good.
Good. All right, so Dan's done a pretty good job. The frame is modified. I like the way that cuts back into the frame there. Got lots of strength going on there, you know? So that's cool. Like we said, Matt might want to actually tow with this one day, so I wanted to make sure there was lots of strength in the frame to actually support the trailer hitch underneath there. But so I think next moving forward is going to be removing the wheel tubs. And once we get the wheel tubs off, we probably want to actually put them back on until the last thing, but we need to get the wheel tubs off so we can modify this frame under here. So the axle can actually travel up inside of it. I also need to get some longer U-bolts, and I'm going to make some lowering blocks to keep the control arm lower than the floor. So we'll put some spacers in there. All right, so next job, got to cut the tubs out, sir.
Yep, so we'll cut 1 inch up from the floor.
Yep.
And cut along the seam.
Yeah, just
remove it.
Yeah, remove it. I'm not sure what we're going to do with the outer wheel tub at this point, but once we get this off, we'll probably end up moving that outer section off too, but let's just take a look at it, get it off, take a look at it, and then we'll see what we got to do. Good?
Yep.
Good. It really makes a difference in there with those wheel tubs gone. You sort of see some of the rot that's going on with the front of the wheel wells there. It's more apparent on that side. You can see it there. So what I was thinking originally was to maybe cut this up and then extend that up and then leave this lip here, but I'm thinking that's not even, why bother, right? Because in here it's all rotted between the two, and maybe, I mean, we're nowhere near at this point yet, but I thought maybe thinking ahead, we'll actually just get rid of this inner lip, and this new wheel tub will just join into the body here, and that way nothing's going to get trapped behind, and as long as it's structurally sound. But we'll deal with that bridge when we get there. Looking at this frame under here, I think we just have to make some, you know, basically we're going to make the same style kick up as this and weld it inside of the body here. So I think that's pretty straightforward. And the back of the body is now supported by the back of the frame again, so, and it's bolted down, so we can cut this and not worry about it, and we'll just match the arch to this. So yeah, let's get building some arches, I guess, then. We'll go do that next.
Arch building.
Arch building. All right, next phase. So now that the body substructure's back in place, we can see what it's going to look like. In fact, this edge here will probably be where the wheel tub joins onto, and then we can actually apply the cover for the rear end, actually attach it right to the framework here. But so now I think the next stage is going to be getting this axle in the right place so we can start physically mounting the axle with a panhard bar and the mounts on the control arm. So you can see I've got these aluminum blocks in there now, but what we need to do is actually drill the holes out inside the aluminum blocks to get it the right place. The problem with that is we have to adjust the pinion angle as well. So rather than angle cutting these aluminum blocks, I think we're just going to cut the axle perch mounts off and then put the pinion angle at the right location and then weld them back on once it's all in place. But what I want to do at this point is actually raise the axle up and just see where it's going to sit in the new frame. So let's crank that up. All right, so the reason I wanted to put these blocks in here in the first place was because of the control arms. I've got about maybe an inch of travel in there before, or in there now, but without these blocks, that control arm hits the frame there. So we end up having to modify the frame. So this is just a good way of getting us a little more clearance in there. You can really see how far up that axle comes inside here now. So assuming this would be fully slammed, right? So we'll have a 6-inch bag with a mount probably in here, or maybe there's actually enough room in there yet, TBD. But I think at this point, let's get these aluminum blocks drilled out. And I've got new U-bolts when I picked up yesterday, an extra 4 inches longer. And then we can center the axle in the control arm holes. And because right now, because it's on such a slope, the axle kind of wants to slide off of that. So let's get that held in place. And then we can center the axle and start working on the panhard bar mount as well. Man, that thing's really up and in there. Looking at how far in that hub is to the axle is up in the body there. I think Matt's gonna have a tough time changing his tires if he ever gets a flat. Maybe we'll have to make like an access hatch here in the cover so he can disconnect his bags and his shock mounts, just so he can drop it down low enough to actually pull his wheel out from in there. All right, to the mill. All right, so the U-bolts are in there. The aluminum blocks have been drilled out. Dan cut the mounts off the axle there. You see that there. So we don't know what the ride height's going to be here yet. So let's just do the jacks and bring it up again. I want to see how much of this pinion's actually going to be into the floor of the van as well. We may have to make an elevated floor in the front. But for now, let's just get it up and it's all the way, if it was all the way dropped. Did you lube this jack?
Yes, I did.
Oh, it's nice.
Maintenance.
Nice and smooth. I think it's cut down my jack times. I can jack faster.
Jack faster.
I'm gonna beat you. Bugger up.
Threads have a better ratio.
Or you're used to jacking.
I'm used to jack.
Oh yeah, like this way down. Yeah, there we go. You almost wedge that in the frame so it'll stay there now. Alright. Oh boy. So understandably, this is not driving anywhere. This is fully slammed. So with these bags, I think this axle will probably come down about 6 inches though. So really 6 inches down from here is where we should set up the pinion angle, right? So, but look at that. That's totally going to cut into the floor, the height of that and where the floor used to be. So we'll have to consider what we're going to do there. We could just make a tunnel over top of it on a angle down to where the transmission mount will be, or the transmission or the drive shaft will be. But I don't know, I guess we got options there, because we can either make that slope or we just raise that whole floor up so there's somewhere to walk, and then this isn't such a big kick up on the front either. The back side we could just bring right down to the floor here. All right, we'll have to ask that one on Matt, see what he thinks about that, give him some options. So now what can we do here? Well, we definitely have to figure out the pinion angle. So let's maybe get the bags and we'll see if we're either going to put them here or see if we can squeeze them in here and build a mount off of this to hold the bottom of the bag. I think we have some sway bars coming in as well. So the sway bar mounts will be on this part of the axle. So, yeah. All right, let's mock up some bags, I guess, and then we'll determine left and right, and we can start mocking up where the pan bar is, ride height, and then get that pinion angle set. So Dan's got the axle all squared up now. So now, these are the bags. So this being the suspension all the way down, right? There'll be probably we'll stick like a tire sidewall in there and bolt it up to the frame in there, so we got a little bit of rubber between the frame. But if that's as low as it can go, we might as well try to squish the bag. I can't do this with one hand, but we got like 2.5 inches when it's compressed there, right? We could put it there. We can't put it in there, but I was thinking we can put it there on top of the control arm. This was the place where it originally was located. You see those 2 holes in there? That was the bottom of the bag mount. It won't fit there because of the body work on the truck, or the framework on the truck, but maybe we can just change the location and stick it in there. Again, this is the suspension all the way down, so if we massacre that thing down in there flat, drill some new holes in that control arm, and we've got a good lower mount, and then we can actually use the frame to build the upper mount to that. And I think that's where it's going to go, because it's not going to hit the body of the truck there. It's out of the way of everything. It's out of the way of the raising block, lifting block in there, the lowering block. And then we'll just move it over a little bit to the outside so it doesn't hit the frame here. So I think that's probably a better spot for it. I guess that's where it's going to go. And then we've got lots of room back here for the panhard bar, sway bar, whatever we're going to do back here. So we still have to play with a pinion angle. But once the bag is in, I mean, we sort of know when you stick air in this thing, it kind of comes up to like 6-7 inches, somewhere in there, 6.5 inches. So if that's going to be the ride height at like 6 inches, then we can set the pinion angle up for when the axle's been raised up to 6 inches. So we can leave these things loose for now until we get the bags and the bag mounts in there. And then, yeah, then we'll revisit. And of course, and again, once we're at ride height, then we can start mocking up where the panhard bar is going to be. It'll probably track a little bit to one side, so we'll try to accommodate for that as well, make it as long as possible. Anyway, we'll figure that out when we get there. Let's now mount the bags, I guess. I guess now we're mounting bags.
Mountain bags.
Mounting bags. So Dan's got the bags in now. So now we got to start setting up for the panhard bar. So the bags are in. I think these bags have an internal bump stop, but we're still going to use the, you can see there's a spacer in there right now. We use a tire sidewall. Just got to find a tire to cut apart right now. Unfortunately, everything's frozen to the ground. The tire I want to use is actually iced up into the ground right now. So, so now we need to set up the panhard bar here across the back. I think what we're going to do, these bags have about 6.5 inches of travel. So we're going to set the panhard bar up for 3 inches. Let me show you this. If I can set that up there. Just on the edge of the frame. So you can draw your finger against that. So with the panhard bar, I'm just sticking the other end on the axle, but if I touch that edge against the frame there, you can see how much that travels up. So at 3 inches up, we only get about a 1/4 inch gap, and 3 inches down, same thing, only get a 3 inches gap. So over the 6 inches, the axle is not going to move a whole lot side to side. So I was worried about how much deflection the rim would be inside the wheel well there, but I think a 1/4 inch we can live with just fine. So let's lower this axle down to the 3 inch mark, and that'll be where we'll set the panhard bar up for 0. All right, so from this point, we have to adjust our pinion angle. And also at ride height, we can now lock the pinion angle in as well. So this is the panhard bar that came with it. It's it's been bent up. I'm not sure what vehicle it's from, but we could actually, there's got a couple options here as well. We could actually put this crossbar, pass that crossbar. This is the old crossbar from the frame, and it has a panhard bar mount in it. So we could actually put it back in here, and that might actually be the thing to do, because then we can still attach the panhard bar under the bottom of it. As long as when the panhard bar is, like, we'll set it up for being dead level at 3 inches of ride height, as long as when it travels up into it, it doesn't hit this panhard bar, it doesn't hit the crossbar. And we may have to modify that a little bit. Or we can put this in the front, just as a, I don't know if that's gonna work there. It's probably not gonna work there. All right, decision's been made. It's going in the back. And then we'll just modify the panhard bar to fit around this and get around the pumpkin. So, let's see how that's gonna look. And we'll just bend these so they look at one another proper. So, I mean, they are rubber mounted, but not that this thing's gonna be hitting any off ramps at a 401 at 120K, but it should still be stout. All right, well, that's step, I don't know, 10, 15, whatever we are now. Well, I think that's it for the rear end at the moment. We can see we got the panhard bar in now, and it tracks perfectly. So like we said, it only tracks about a 1/4 inch deviation there, so that's fine. And then the shocks are in, and the mounts are just tacked in place right now because although I think the bags have like 6.5 inches worth of travel, the shocks only travel 5.25. So I'd like to get some longer shocks in there so we can maximize the potential of the bags and get this thing up to at least 6 inches of road height traveling down the road. But that's pretty much it here for now because we're waiting on the rims to be modified. We sent those out with the customer. He's having them modified right now just to change the offset on the rims so we can get it within 1 inch of the outer body there. So although we don't have the rims, we could probably trim or get rid of the rest of the wheel well. But I think I kind of want to start looking at the front and see what's going on there. So let's move to the front. All right, so the front, we need to accommodate, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on here, but we need to accommodate the new steering column, the driver position, that we're gonna modify the doghouse because the LS is gonna require that to be raised up a little bit, and we have to put a seat in here. The customer actually bought that bench seat, or Matt actually bought this bench seat here, so we gotta stick that in there. But the doghouse is gonna get in the way. So before we can do anything under here, we sort of need to figure out where the seating position is going to be first, and then we can figure out where the driver's going to be, and then we figure out where the steering column is going to be, and then we can figure out where the brake pedal is going to be. You can see on the original Metro seat here how much closer the driver was to the floor where he probably put his feet on, and the steering column probably came up much more vertical here. So you know you're sitting really forward, driving like a bus, and then you can flip the seat up out of the way when you needed to get in and out. So I think we need to take, before we even start modifying anything here, we need to put the engine back into it. So take the doghouse off, get the engine mounted back in there, pull all this stuff off, and then see what has to be modified, really. We need the engine in to figure out where everything else needs to fit, right? Yeah. Biggest to smallest. So let's disassemble all of this. We'll peel the body back off, stick the motor back in. In that time we can put our drive shaft in and make sure our angles are good. We got to remove that cross member right there and start building potentially some sort of subfloor in the back to, it's either build a subfloor in the back or we just make an angled tube in the floor to cover the drive shaft when it's slammed. So lots to do there yet, but while we're waiting on the rims, let's pull apart the front end. All right, the rear axle is being installed. We're still waiting on the rims to come back from the customer. We're having the offsets changed in them right now so we can maximize the dish on the lip. So waiting for those to come back, and we're still waiting for our shocks to come in for there, but everything else is pretty much done. The pinion angle is just mocked up, I think at, what is it?
4 degrees.
4 degrees, that's right. And then, so that's just tacked in place. We'll still have to blow that apart to fully weld it, but we're still in the mock-up phase right now, because we're probably gonna end up painting this chassis at some point. The engine is also being installed. And what we had to do there is because the old engine sat so low, the oil pan was actually below the frame before. So we just kept lifting the engine up until it was above the cross member. So you can see that in there. And then once we had that up to the height we needed, needed to again match the engine at 4 degrees there. So we just tilted the back up till we had the equal and opposite angle of the pinion in the rear, and then modified the transmission cross member for that. So, and that's pretty much it. Then we have to still re-weld the mounts up there, or fully weld the mounts up there, but everything's just sort of tacked in place for now, right? So I think that pretty much concludes this video of the rear axle. But I think we can do one more thing, and that's mount the body to the chassis. Dan's been trimming everything we need. All the cross members are cut out. All the relief cuts have been made to get the body on the frame there as low as possible. So I think as a parting final shot for this episode, we'll actually put the chassis back, lower the body on it, and then take all the air out of the system and see how low she gets. Right now you can see we've got it strapped to the hoist. We don't want it moving, but we'll probably end up having to jack it up to get the hoist arms out. Get the hoist arms out and then lower it down on the ground. So let's get that set up and yeah, see what she looks like.
Get lower.
Get lower. So our plan was to get the jacks underneath the vehicle so we can get the hoist arms out. Turns out we can't get the jacks under the vehicle, but it's still too low. So, but they stick in here. So the body's on the chassis. You can see how much we still need to trim on this arc here. So this needs to come up a little bit. In fact, you know, when we go to lower it, we're only going to lower it an inch, Dan, before this actually hits right now. We'll have to chop that out. Nuts. I forgot about this inner wheel tub. We have to cut that out. Either way, we can lower the front if we can get the front end up. So, see how we need to modify these cross members. We're going to have to modify this one just for the drive shaft is going to hit the knuckle is going to hit this cross member for sure. This one here we've had to cut out. This one here is definitely going to have to get cut out. Yeah, so we'll end up probably raising the floor up to go over top of the drive shaft as opposed to just putting a tunnel in here. And that way we can have a nice flat floor. I don't know, TBD. Plus this floor here that went across, this is also in the way of the floor. So I think there's a bunch of reasons here why we should elevate the entire floor up. If we raise the whole floor up 6 inches, that gives us a flat floor across the whole thing. I think that's going to be better. Anyway, that's TBD. So empty. That cross member's not getting much lower there. Much better. So unfortunately, we can't lower the back end any more right now because of those wheel wells. Nuts. So we can see, unfortunately, how much of a space would you say the rocker is to the ground there, Dan?
Yeah, 3 inches.
Yeah. So if we look at the distance we have above the axle here, that's an easy 3 inches. So the back of the rocker will definitely touch the ground if that wasn't in the way. Dang. All right, so either way, let's leave this. But the front end looks like it's in the right spot. Totally. That wheel is definitely tucked in there pretty good. And he has a little bit of turning radius. Made him notching the control arms just so he'd have a little bit of wiggle room in there, right? I wouldn't suggest driving that low. But I think that's going to be it for this video. So moving forward, next episode's definitely going to be, we're into the body now. So we have a lot to trim and modify on the inside with making everything fit in there. And well, yeah, we'll get into that in the next video. But so that's going to be it. So thanks for watching the video. Hope you like it. As always, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all those things. And yeah, see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. All right, so after that anticlimactic ending without the rear end being dropped, Dan decided to chop the rear end up. So we just made a couple of relief cuts and blew those areas out. So let's see what she looks like from the other side. That's much better. You can see the rocker's just like a ½ inch off the ground there now. So again, these tires are bigger than what they should be. Oh, look, the back end is on the ground though. Okay, it's a little extra low back here. that corner around the edge there is on the ground. So that's pretty cool. Oh yeah, the trim. That edge is on the ground there. It's funny. Cool. That wheel is definitely jammed up in there. I look forward to getting the other wheels in there now. And a lot of body repairs. Either way. There we go. Much better. Considerably shorter than when it came in here now. Very cool. That's a much better ending. Glad you modified that, Dan. Thanks, buddy.
No problem.
All right. Now that's a wrap. See you in the next video. Definitely easier cleaning the windows at this height.